Daniel Parker stood near the back of the large hotel ballroom and looked around quietly. The room was filled with laughter, music, and excited conversations. Hundreds of employees had gathered for the company's annual celebration. Managers talked proudly about their achievements. Workers smiled as they enjoyed the expensive food and drinks. Everyone seemed happy. Everyone except Daniel. He adjusted his old suit and took a slow breath. The suit was clean, but it was clearly not as expensive as the clothes worn by most people in the room. A few employees glanced at him before looking away. To them, he looked like someone who did not belong there. Then he heard a familiar voice. "Well, look who finally showed up." Daniel turned and saw his older brother, Ryan. Ryan walked over with a smirk on his face. Their parents and younger sister followed behind him. The moment Daniel saw them, he already knew how the conversation would go. It always went the same way. His mother looked him up and down and sighed. "Daniel, couldn't you at least buy a better suit for an event like this?" Ryan laughed. Maybe he spent all his money on bus tickets just to get here. His sister Emily giggled. Even his father shook his head. "I thought by now you would have done something with your life." The group laughed softly. Daniel forced a small smile. He had heard these comments for years. Nothing had changed. When he was younger, he used to argue, he used to explain himself, he used to tell them about his dreams. But eventually he learned something. People who had already decided who you were rarely listened to anything you said, so he simply stayed quiet. His silence only made Ryan laugh harder. "Still not talking much, huh?" Daniel looked at his brother calmly. "I came to enjoy the evening." Ryan smirked. "That's easy when you don't have any real responsibilities." His parents chuckled again. A few nearby employees overheard the conversation and smiled awkwardly. Daniel could feel their eyes on him. To everyone around him, he looked exactly like the man his family described. The family disappointment, the family failure, the son who never became anything important. But appearances could be very misleading. Across the room, several board members had already noticed Daniel's arrival. One of them even nodded respectfully toward him. Daniel returned the nod before looking away. Fortunately, his family did not notice. If they had, they would have started asking questions. And Daniel was not ready for that conversation yet. His mother crossed her arms. "So, Daniel, what are you doing these days?" The question sounded innocent, but everyone knew what she really meant. She wanted another reason to criticize him. Daniel answered calmly, "I work in business." Ryan laughed immediately. "Business? What kind of business?" Daniel smiled slightly. "Different kinds." His sister rolled her eyes. "That's not really an answer." Before Daniel could reply, Ryan jumped in again. "Come on, Emily, leave him alone." He looked at Daniel and grinned. If he was successful, we would already know about it. More laughter followed. Daniel remained silent. The truth was almost funny. If they knew what he actually did, nobody would be laughing. But that moment would come later. For now, he was content to watch. His father pointed toward the stage. "The CEO is supposed to make a big announcement tonight." Ryan nodded excitedly. "I heard the company is expanding again." Emily smiled. "Imagine being important enough to sit with the executives." Ryan laughed. "Or important enough to own a company like this." Daniel almost smiled at the irony, if only they knew. The ballroom continued filling with guests. Employees hurried between tables. Photographers moved around taking pictures. Excitement grew with every passing minute. Everyone was waiting for one person, the owner. Very few employees had ever seen him. Most only knew his name from company reports. The owner preferred privacy. He rarely appeared at public events. That mystery had become one of the most talked about subjects inside the company. People constantly wondered who he really was. Some imagined an older businessman. Others imagined a famous investor. Nobody guessed the truth. Near the entrance, a senior board member suddenly entered the room. Several managers rushed over to greet him. The atmosphere immediately changed. The event was becoming more formal. Something important was about to happen. Ryan watched the board member and smiled. Maybe he'll introduce us to the owner tonight. His father nodded. I would love to meet someone that successful. Daniel looked at them carefully. The words almost made him laugh. For years they had ignored him, mocked him, embarrassed him at family dinners, compared him to everyone else. Now they admired success. but they had never bothered to learn what he had actually become. One of the board members glanced across the room again. This time he started walking directly toward Daniel. Several employees noticed. Confused whispers spread through the crowd. The board member ignored everyone else and stopped in front of Daniel. Then he smiled warmly. "It's good to see you here tonight, sir." Ryan's smile disappeared. Emily blinked in confusion. Their parents exchanged surprised looks. Daniel shook the man's hand. "It's good to be here." The board member nodded respectfully. "We've been waiting for your arrival." For a moment, complete silence surrounded the family. Ryan looked from Daniel to the board member and back again. His face showed pure confusion. The board member excused himself and walked away, but the damage had already been done. Questions filled the air. His mother frowned. "Why did he call you, sir?" Daniel remained calm. "He's just being polite." Ryan narrowed his eyes. "No, something feels strange." For the first time all evening, nobody was laughing. The family looked uncomfortable, as if they had suddenly realized there was something they did not know. Something important. Then the lights inside the ballroom began to dim. Conversations slowly stopped. Employees returned to their seats. The stage lights switched on. A man walked toward the microphone, the chairman of the board. The entire room became silent. A smile appeared on the chairman's face as he looked at the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "tonight is a very special night." Daniel sat quietly while his family's attention remained fixed on the stage. None of them noticed the small smile forming on his face. The chairman adjusted the microphone and continued. "There is someone here tonight that all of you have wanted to meet for a very long time." A wave of excitement moved through the room. Ryan leaned forward eagerly. Emily smiled. Even Daniel's parents looked interested. The chairman paused for a moment. Then he said, "Please stay seated because in just a few minutes we will introduce the owner of this company." The audience erupted into applause, and Daniel's family had no idea their lives were about to change forever. The applause continued throughout the ballroom. Employees smiled excitedly. People whispered to each other. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Who was the mysterious owner? For years, the company had grown faster than anyone expected. New offices had opened, profits had increased, employees received better benefits, yet almost nobody had ever met the owner in person. The mystery only made people more curious. Ryan leaned closer to his father. "I can't wait to see who it is." His father nodded. "It has to be someone extraordinary." Emily smiled. "Probably some billionaire from New York." Their mother agreed immediately. "People don't build companies like this unless they're geniuses." Daniel sat quietly beside them. His expression never changed. The chairman continued speaking on stage. He talked about the company's success. He thanked employees for their hard work. He shared stories about the company's growth. But Daniel noticed something else. The board members kept glancing toward him. They were waiting, just as he was. Meanwhile, Ryan could not stop talking. "If I ever met someone that successful, I would ask for advice." His father laughed. "You should ask for a promotion instead." Everyone chuckled. Except Daniel, because he knew something they did not. Ryan's future inside the company would soon depend on a decision Daniel had already made, a decision nobody saw coming. The chairman finally stepped away from the microphone. A short video began playing on large screens around the ballroom. The video showed the company's history, old offices, small teams, early struggles, then rapid growth. The audience watched carefully. But Daniel's attention drifted elsewhere. His thoughts returned to 5 years earlier. Back to the day everything changed. Back when his family truly believed he was a failure. Back when he walked away, 5 years earlier. Daniel still remembered that dinner. Every detail felt fresh in his mind. His family had gathered to celebrate Ryan's promotion. Relatives filled the house. Everyone praised Ryan. Everyone congratulated him. Meanwhile, Daniel sat quietly at the end of the table. Then an uncle asked a simple question. "So Daniel, how's your career going?" The room became silent. Before Daniel could answer, Ryan laughed. "What career?" Several relatives laughed with him. His mother shook her head. "Daniel is still trying to figure out life." His father added, "He always has big dreams but no results." More laughter followed. Daniel felt every word, not because strangers said it, but because his own family did, the people who were supposed to believe in him, the people who were supposed to support him. Instead, They treated him like a joke. That night, something inside him changed. For years, he had hoped they would understand him. For years, he had tried to earn their approval. But sitting at that table, he finally realized the truth. Nothing he did would ever be enough, at least not in their eyes. The next morning, he packed a small bag. He left home, and nobody tried to stop him. For several weeks, nobody even called. Back then, life was not easy. Daniel rented a tiny apartment. The walls were old, the furniture barely worked. Some nights he could hear water dripping through the ceiling. His savings disappeared quickly. To survive, he worked multiple jobs. During the day, he helped small businesses organize their accounts. At night, he worked on a software idea he believed could help companies manage operations more efficiently. Most people told him it would fail. Investors rejected him. Clients ignored him. Friends advised him to quit. But Daniel kept going. Because unlike his family, he no longer cared about proving himself to others. He only wanted to prove something to himself. Months became years. The software slowly improved. One small company became his first customer, then another, then another. Growth remained slow, but it never stopped. Eventually, something unexpected happened. A major corporation noticed his work. They signed a contract worth more money than Daniel had ever seen. Everything changed overnight. His business expanded, new employees joined, investors suddenly became interested. The same people who once ignored him now wanted meetings. The same people who once doubted him now wanted partnerships. Success arrived slowly, then all at once. Back in the ballroom, the company video ended. Applause filled the room again. Ryan looked impressed. Imagine creating something like that. His father nodded. Only exceptional people achieve this level of success. Daniel almost laughed. If only they knew how many times they had called that exceptional person a loser. The chairman returned to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, there is another part of this story most people don't know. The room became quiet. The owner did not inherit this company. Employees listened carefully. He was not born wealthy. More silence followed. He started with almost nothing. Several people nodded respectfully. The chairman continued. He faced rejection, criticism, and failure countless times. Daniel's family listened closely. Without realizing they were listening to Daniel's story, the people around him often doubted him. Ryan crossed his arms. Sounds familiar. His mother smiled. Most successful people hear criticism. The chairman paused dramatically. But the criticism that hurt the most came from people closest to him. Daniel's father shifted uncomfortably in his seat. For some reason, those words felt personal. The chairman continued. Those people called him unrealistic. Daniel's mother looked away. They called him unsuccessful. Ryan stopped smiling. They called him a failure. A strange feeling spread across the family's table. Nobody spoke. Nobody laughed. For the first time all evening, they seemed nervous. Meanwhile, whispers spread throughout the ballroom. Employees became even more interested. Many wondered who this mysterious owner could be. The chairman smiled, and despite everything, he never gave up. The audience applauded. But Daniel noticed something unusual. His father looked distracted, almost worried, as if pieces of a puzzle were slowly falling into place. Then another board member walked directly toward Daniel. This time everyone noticed. Not just his family, nearby employees watched openly. The board member leaned down slightly. Everything is ready, sir. Daniel nodded calmly. Thank you. The man smiled respectfully and walked away. This time there was no explanation that could satisfy Ryan. He stared at Daniel. What exactly is going on? Daniel looked at him. What do you mean? Ryan lowered his voice. Board members don't treat regular guests like that. Daniel simply smiled. His silence frustrated Ryan even more. Across the ballroom, employees were whispering. Some had started looking directly at Daniel. Others checked photographs on company websites, trying to compare faces, trying to solve the mystery before the official announcement. Then something unexpected happened. The giant screen behind the stage changed. A photograph appeared. It showed a young man standing outside a small apartment building. The image was several years old. The audience looked confused, but Daniel immediately recognized it. The photo had been taken during his earliest struggles. The chairman pointed toward the screen. This photograph was taken when our owner had less than $50 in his bank account. The room fell silent. Then another photo appeared, then another, each one showing the owner's journey. The audience watched carefully, and suddenly Emily's eyes widened. She leaned forward, her face turning pale. "No way," she whispered. Ryan looked at the screen, then at Daniel, then back at the screen. His expression froze, because the man in the photographs looked exactly like his brother. And for the first time that night, real fear appeared in his eyes. The chairman smiled and stepped closer to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he paused, allowing the tension to grow. Then he spoke the words that would change everything. "In just a few moments, you will finally meet the person behind this company." The entire ballroom held its breath, and Daniel slowly stood up from his chair. The moment Daniel stood up, time seemed to stop. The ballroom fell completely silent. Hundreds of eyes followed him. Employees looked confused, managers looked shocked, even the board members seemed emotional. Ryan stared at his brother as if he were looking at a stranger. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Emily looked back and forth between Daniel and the giant screen, trying to convince herself she was wrong. But deep down, she already knew the truth. Their mother gripped the edge of the table. Her face had gone pale. Their father sat perfectly still. For the first time in years, he had nothing to say. Daniel calmly adjusted his jacket. Then he began walking toward the stage. Every step felt heavier than the last. Not because he was nervous, but because he knew exactly what this moment meant. For years, he had imagined proving everyone wrong. For years, he had dreamed about the day his family would finally see him differently. But now that the moment had arrived, he felt something unexpected. He felt peaceful. The anger he once carried was gone. The need for revenge had disappeared. Only the truth remained. The chairman smiled as Daniel approached. Then he stepped aside and extended his hand. "Please welcome our owner and CEO, Daniel Parker." The ballroom exploded into applause. People jumped to their feet. Employees cheered. Managers clapped enthusiastically. Several board members stood as well. The sound filled every corner of the room. But at Daniel's family table, nobody moved. They sat frozen, completely stunned. Ryan looked as though the ground had disappeared beneath him. His entire world had been turned upside down. The brother he mocked, the brother he laughed at, the brother he called a failure, was the owner of the company where he worked. Daniel walked to the microphone. The applause continued for nearly a minute. Finally, the room became quiet. He looked across the audience. Then his eyes briefly stopped on his family. No anger, no hatred, just calm. Then he began speaking. "Thank you for being here tonight." His voice was steady. "Many people think success happens overnight." The audience listened carefully. But success usually starts with failure. Several employees nodded. Daniel continued. "There was a time when nobody believed in me." The room remained silent. "There was a time when people laughed at my dreams." His family's faces grew more uncomfortable with every sentence. "There was a time when I was told I would never become anything important." Ryan lowered his eyes. For the first time, he remembered every cruel joke, every insult. Every time he made his brother feel small, Daniel paused, then smiled. "And honestly, those moments helped me more than anyone realizes." The audience looked surprised. Daniel continued, "They taught me something valuable." He looked around the room. "If people don't believe in you, that doesn't mean your dream is impossible." More applause followed. "It only means they cannot see what you see." The room erupted again. Even employees who had never met Daniel before felt inspired. Meanwhile, his family sat quietly. Listening to every word, Daniel spent several minutes thanking employees, managers, board members, and everyone who helped build the company. Then the speech ended. The audience stood once again. The applause was louder than before. Many employees wanted photographs. Others wanted to shake his hand. The celebration continued, but Daniel noticed his family remained seated, still trying to process everything. Nearly an hour later, the crowd finally began to thin. Groups of employees left the ballroom. Board members said their goodbyes. Soon only a handful of people remained. Daniel was speaking with several executives when he noticed his parents approaching. His mother looked nervous, something Daniel had never seen before. His father looked older somehow. as though the events of the evening had added years to his face. When they reached him, neither spoke immediately. The silence lasted several seconds. Finally, his mother broke it. "We didn't know." Daniel smiled softly. "I know." Tears formed in her eyes. "We were wrong about you." Daniel remained quiet. His father looked down at the floor, then sighed heavily. "I spent years judging you." His voice cracked slightly. "I thought I understood success." Another long silence followed. "But I never understood you." For a moment, nobody spoke. Then his father extended his hand. "I'm sorry, son." Daniel looked at him carefully. The apology felt genuine, not because of money, not because of status, but because regret was written all over his face. Slowly, Daniel shook his hand. His mother hugged him tightly. Relief appeared on her face. As though she had been carrying guilt for years, a few minutes later, Ryan approached. The confident smile he usually wore was gone. For perhaps the first time in his life, he seemed unsure of himself. He looked at Daniel, then looked away. "I don't know what to say." Daniel smiled slightly. "Then don't force it." Ryan laughed nervously, a strange laugh filled with embarrassment. After a long pause, he finally spoke. "I was jealous." Daniel looked surprised. Ryan continued. "Even back then." His voice was quiet. "You always took risks. I always played it safe. And when people started praising me, I liked it." He shook his head. "So I made jokes about you because it made me feel better about myself." Daniel could see the honesty in his eyes. For years, Ryan had hidden behind confidence, but now the truth had finally come out. "I'm sorry," Ryan said. And for the first time, Daniel believed him. Nearby, Emily stepped forward, stepped. She smiled weakly. "I guess we all owe you an apology." Daniel laughed softly. "Maybe a little." Everyone smiled. The tension began to fade. Not because the past had disappeared, but because the truth was finally out. A few weeks later, life inside the company returned to normal. Employees continued their work. New projects began. New goals were set. But one thing had changed. The story of Daniel Parker spread throughout the company. Not because he was rich, not because he was the owner, but because of where he started. Many employees who doubted themselves found inspiration in his journey. People talked about perseverance, patience, and determination. The lessons behind his success became more important than the success itself. As for Daniel, he never used his position to embarrass his family. He never fired Ryan. He never demanded respect. He simply continued leading the company the same way he always had, with humility. Because true success no longer needed to prove anything, one evening, several months later, Daniel stood alone in his office, looking out over the city skyline. The lights stretched for miles. The same city where he once struggled to pay rent. The same city where people doubted him. The same city where he built everything from nothing. His phone buzzed. A family group message appeared. His mother was planning a family dinner. Everyone was invited. Daniel smiled. Years earlier, he would have ignored the message. But now things were different. The wounds had healed, not completely, but enough. He placed the phone back on his desk and looked out the window once more. Then he quietly whispered to himself, "I made it." Not because he became wealthy, not because he owned a company, but because he never gave up when everyone else had already given up on him. And somehow, that felt like the greatest victory of all. Moral of the story. Sometimes the people who doubt you the most are the people closest to you. They may laugh at your dreams because they cannot see your vision. They may judge your current situation without understanding your future potential, but your worth is not decided by other people's opinions. Success comes from patience, hard work, and believing in yourself when nobody else does. Never let someone's doubt become your limit. The people who call you a failure today may be the same people who admire your success tomorrow. And the best way to prove them wrong is not through anger or revenge. It is through growth, persistence, and becoming the person you always believed you could be.